It's time for Ben Shapiro to debunk another anti-Israel TikTok video. Let's have a watch.
Today, about 70% of all Gazans are considered refugees from the 1948 expulsion.
Okay, pause that for a second. How is that even possible? Seriously, how's that even possible? When you say 70% of all Gazans are considered refugees from the 1948 expulsion, the only way to say that that is the case is by including, of course, all of the descendants of the people who were, quote unquote, expelled. And by expelled, we mean they moved 3 miles down the road from Ashkelon to the Gaza Strip. So what? Israel is supposed to accept back entire populations of people who seek their destruction. That's the goal here.
This predictably sparked a war. Yes, when you have colonial powers coming into a territory that does not belong to them and forcibly removing people from their land, it tends to get violent.
That's the end argument. The end argument, as always, that Israel is a colonialist occupying power, an outpost of the West. The Jews are not indigenous to the land. The Arabs are somehow magically indigenous to the land, despite the fact they come from, Arabia. And despite the fact that Islam is predated by Judaism by at least a millennium and a half. Obviously, the Jews are the original European settler colonialists. Doesn't matter that the vast majority of Jewish land in the run-up to 1948 was literally bought. It was purchased. It was not militarily secured. It doesn't matter. There was continuous Jewish presence in the land for thousands of years. The idea here is that the true original inhabitants of the land are the Palestinian Arabs, who did not even consider Palestinian Arab to be an actual national designation until the 1960s. All those Arabs were considered Transjordanian, or they were considered Syrian or Egyptian. Yasser Arafat, for example, was Egyptian. In the end, all it comes down to is this idea that the Jews are the colonialist occupiers. That's all it comes down to, which, of course, is the fundamental big lie at the root of all of this.
Yeah, but you're missing context. What about before Christ? Invoking the Bible as an excuse to ethnically cleanse a population from its territory is a baby-brained middle school argument.
Hold on a second. That's not that's what was in the claim. The claim is not that the Bible justifies Jewish ownership of the Jewish homeland. That's not the claim. The claim is that you are saying that original presence on the land is the historic justification for continued presence on the land. And so I'm saying the Jews predated the Palestinians, which is true by every possible measure. That has nothing to do with the Bible. That has to do with a basic historical argument.
So Ben is absolutely right here, and it's amazing. He kind of gets all the points quicker than most people can think. But the key point that this person is making, that he's responding to, is that somehow Israel has an original sin, that they displaced the Arabs. And so what do you expect? Of course the Arabs are going to fight back. Of course they're going to be unhappy. Of course they're going to hate Israel. Well, this is a bit of a case of misunderstanding the chicken and the egg. If, let's just give him the benefit of the doubt, he genuinely thinks this is the case rather than just hating on Israel. So I want to show you a very important map. Okay? This is a map of the UN partition plan of 1947. And what the UN said was as follows. They said, look, there's Jews living here and there are Arabs living here. Now, there was no great displacement that occurred that the TikTok guy was lamenting, saying that Arabs were displaced and pushed out, so what do you expect? Obviously they're going to... No. There were Jews living in this land. There were Arabs living in this land. There had never been a state called Palestine. There was never even a call among Arabs to have a Palestinian state of their own. They'd have to be part of another Arab country or empire because they just consider themselves Arabs, descending over time. Some of them actually just came in the 18th and 19th century as the Jews started returning. But others had been there since the time of the Islamic conquest of the 7th century, which occurred many generations after the Jews had already been living there. The last sovereign state to exist in that territory was a Jewish one. So the UN says, right, there are Jews living here, there are Arabs living here. Let's divide the land. And as you can see in this map, it's basically 50-50 split. The Arabs had a little bit, quite a bit more fertile territory. Like a lot of the south is given to the Jews, and that's just a desert. But nevertheless, they said, okay, this will be a fair split. Before the displacement occurs that he was complaining about, the Jews said, okay. The Arabs said no, and they launch a war. And in that war, surrounding Arab armies tell them, leave, move out, we're going to clear the Jews, then you can come back. And yes, some left because Israel was fighting a war of survival. But now they say, This is so unfair. You displaced us, and we have a right to come back and take the land as our own. You're getting the chicken and the egg mixed up. Israel was very happy to live alongside them. There was no displacement. They launched a war to kill the Jews. And now it's our fault? And now when some of them got displaced, or literally displaced themselves, you're blaming Israel. Everything they complain about, from displacement to security checkpoints, to occupation, to blockades, to this war in Gaza, all of these things are self-inflicted by the Arabs, by the Palestinians as they call themselves, by their leadership. If they were simply prepared to say, we accept the Jewish people's right to re-establish sovereignty in their ancient homeland, it would be over, not tomorrow, this second. Everything would be over. There would be peace. And so it is utterly disingenuous, utterly false to say that they just are upset that Israel and the Jews came along and displaced them. No, you tried to kill the Jews. You tried to displace them. More than displace them, you tried to throw them into the sea. And the Jews said, in great fairness, we're not going to have that. We're going to defend ourselves, we're going to protect our territory, and we're going to do what we need to do to survive. Because what you're interested in is not having your own state and living alongside us. You're interested in wiping us out. And we've been used to that for a very long time, for 2,000 years. And we're not going to be dancing to those tunes anymore. So let's not fall for the lies, and let's be confident in stating the truth of what actually took place, and have the confidence not to be intimidated by the attempted shaming and smearing of Israel. It's all lies. It's all falsehood. So let's just state it clearly. Hi, thank you so much for watching. To watch another one, click here. To stay up to date with all our content, click here to subscribe. And if you're able to, you can help support JTV to grow and grow by clicking join below this video, where you can become a member and get perks including early access to videos and private live discussions with me. But most of all, you'll be partnering with us on our mission to change the world.